She woke up to the sound of rain tapping against the thin metal roof of the shelter. She called home today was like every other day, yet somehow it felt heavier, the weight of exhaustion and despair pressing against her chest. She wrapped her threadbare coat tighter around her shoulders and tried to remember a time when life felt simpler, when she had a place to call her own and people who believed in her. She could not find that memory. It had been swallowed by years of struggle and nights spent on cold concrete. Yet deep inside, a small ember of hope refused to die. She rose from the thin mattress that barely kept the chill from her bones and walked to the communal bathroom, each step echoing in the empty hallways of the shelter. She avoided the stares of others, some curious, some pitying, because she had learned long ago that appearances could be deceiving and that pride could be a shield. She splashed cold water on her face and looked into the cracked mirror. The reflection staring back at her was worn and tired, but the eyes, they burned with determination, a fire that no circumstance could extinguish. Today she would take another step toward a life she had only dreamed of, a life that seemed impossible, yet somehow she believed it was within reach. She gathered her belongings, a few clothes, a notebook, a pen, and an old laptop she had scavenged from a donation center, and made her way to the public library. The streets were slick with rain, and the city moved around her, oblivious to the battles fought by those it overlooked. She sat in her usual corner of the library, opening the laptop she had named Hope because it was all she had. She began to type. She wrote down her dreams, her fears, her failures, and her plans. She studied online courses. She read articles about entrepreneurship and business leadership. She watched videos of women who had faced unimaginable obstacles and emerged victorious. She allowed herself to imagine a life where she could inspire others, not just survive, but thrive. The hours passed unnoticed as she immersed herself in learning. Each lesson she absorbed felt like a brick in the foundation of her future. She worked part-time jobs, washing dishes, cleaning offices, delivering packages. Anything that would earn her a few dollars. She saved every penny. She could rent a locker to keep her belongings safe and slowly build a routine that gave her days structure and nights purpose. The community around her began to notice the change. The other residents of the shelter, who had once dismissed her as just another lost soul, began to see a spark, a relentless spirit that refused to be broken. She offered encouragement to younger women. She shared her knowledge. She became a quiet leader among them, inspiring them without words, just by example. She faced setbacks more than she could count, losing a job due to layoffs, being evicted from temporary housing, having her laptop stolen, and every time she wanted to give up, something inside whispered, "Keep going, keep fighting, you are stronger than this." Each obstacle became a lesson, each failure a stepping stone. She learned resilience the hard way. She learned to trust herself when no one else would. She learned that dignity is not given, it is claimed through action and perseverance. As months turned into years, her small efforts began to compound. Her online freelance business slowly gained clients. Her reputation for reliability and excellence grew. She moved from library tables to coffee shops with Wi-Fi, then to a small rented office where she could meet clients. She hired her first assistant, and together they expanded the business. Her focus was never just on profit, it was on impact. She wanted to create opportunities for others who had been overlooked. She established mentorship programs for young women in shelters, teaching them skills she had learned. The network she built became a web of support and inspiration. She spoke at community events, sharing her story. She wrote articles and gave interviews. Every time she spoke, she remembered the nights spent shivering in the rain and the moments she thought she would not survive. She wanted others to know that survival was not enough. You could rise, you could build a life filled with purpose and meaning. She reached a point where she could finally rent a small apartment, her first real home in years. The furniture was sparse, but each item represented a victory, each wall a testament to her determination. She hung a framed photograph of herself standing in front of the shelter where her journey began. It was a reminder not of pain, but of possibility. She became known as a CEO who led with empathy, a leader who remembered the struggle that forged her. She invested in programs that provided training for women in underserved communities. She advocated for policies that supported housing and education. She became a symbol of what could be achieved when courage met opportunity. Yet, she never forgot the nights of despair, the hunger, the loneliness. She carried those experiences as a compass guiding her decisions, a reminder that privilege was not a birthright, but a responsibility. She spoke at conferences, sharing insights into resilience and leadership, each word infused with authenticity because it came from lived experience. She encouraged women to embrace failure as a teacher, to see obstacles as invitations to grow. She launched a foundation to provide scholarships for women who had faced homelessness, ensuring that the next generation would have the resources she had lacked. Every success she achieved was a tribute to those who had believed in her when she could not believe in herself. She remembered the library tables, the late nights studying by the dim light of a laptop. She remembered the shelter bunk where she had whispered prayers to herself, asking for strength. Each memory was a thread in the tapestry of her life, proving that even from the most fragile beginnings, greatness could emerge. She met other women who were where she had been, and she listened to their stories. She offered guidance, encouragement, and a roadmap out of despair. She never sugarcoated the journey because truth was more powerful than comfort. She often said to audiences that the darkest nights prepare you for the brightest dawns, and that each woman has within her a reservoir of strength waiting to be called upon. She celebrated milestones quietly in her office, sometimes just sitting and reflecting on how far she had come, how many times she had chosen to rise when falling down seemed easier. She established programs within her company that focused on personal development, emotional intelligence, and resilience training. She wanted the workplace to be a space where women felt empowered to bring their full selves, their dreams, and their potential. She invested in storytelling projects highlighting unsung heroes, women whose voices were ignored. She understood that sharing these stories amplified hope and connected communities. She became a mentor to hundreds of women who now called her a beacon, a lighthouse guiding them through stormy seas. She spoke of her failures, openly her bankruptcies, events. Sharing her story, she wrote a memoir capturing the journey from despair to empowerment. She donated proceeds to shelters and educational programs. She became a symbol not just of success, but of resilience and compassion. She was invited to national panels to discuss homelessness, women in business, and empowerment initiatives. She used every platform to highlight systemic issues while sharing actionable steps for change. She created a culture in her company where women could thrive. Leadership was inclusive and collaborative. She emphasized mentorship and continuous learning. She spoke often of gratitude, reminding herself and others that the journey was never solitary. She recognized those who had offered help along the way. The caseworkers, volunteers, educators, and fellow survivors each had played a role in her ascent. She established a network connecting women in shelters to career opportunities and resources. She leveraged her influence to create partnerships that expanded impact. She celebrated small victories, publicly acknowledging the importance of each step forward. She became a storyteller, weaving narratives of triumph from struggle, inspiring audiences to believe in their own capacity to rise. Her life became a living testament to the power of persistence, of hope, and a vision. She often reflected on the nights she had sat alone, shivering, wondering if she would ever feel safe again. She remembered the small gestures that kept her going: a hot meal from a stranger, a word of encouragement, a library seat that became a sanctuary. These details shaped her philosophy. She said that empowerment begins with noticing the small sparks and nurturing them into flames. She never forgot the importance of community. Giving back became a core value. She established workshops teaching financial literacy, leadership skills, and emotional resilience. She celebrated her team, acknowledging their role in the collective journey. Each speech, each article, each mentorship moment was imbued with authenticity. She used her story, not to boast, but to illuminate the path for others. She recognized that the journey of one woman could ripple outward, influencing families, communities, and organizations. She reminded audiences that setbacks are not failures, but invitations to grow, and that courage is cultivated in moments of fear. She advocated for systemic changes addressing homelessness, education, and women's empowerment. She became a voice for those unheard, a champion for those overlooked. She met countless women whose resilience inspired her as much as her story inspired them. She understood that strength is reciprocal and that leadership is service. She concluded every talk by emphasizing that life is unpredictable, that pain and joy coexist, and that within each individual lies the power to rewrite their story. She urged listeners to take the first step, no matter how small, to embrace their capacity for growth and to believe that the darkest chapters are only the prelude to extraordinary beginnings. She often paused during her reflections, feeling the gravity of the journey, feeling gratitude and humility, knowing that each moment of struggle had forged a strength that no adversity could undo. And as she looked out over audiences, she saw not strangers, but potential allies, dreamers, and fighters. She felt the responsibility and the honor to continue sharing the message, to inspire, to empower, and to ignite hope. She knew that the journey would never truly end, that each day offered new challenges, new opportunities, and that the essence of resilience was in the commitment to rise again. And again, she closed her eyes, sometimes whispering a silent prayer for guidance and strength for those still in darkness. And with that, she returned to her work, to her Missy,